Change is constant and inevitable, but everything else is a choice. That's what Bob Proctor taught me. Now, Bob is the godfather of personal development, and he was in the movie The Secret. And so he teaches that we are going to experience change no matter what, but everything else is a choice. So the thing is, if that's true, then what's in our way? And there are two things that are in our way. One is called the emotional cycle of change, and the other one is called habit gravity. So conceptually, let's take a look at what those look like. The way most entrepreneurs try to scale their business is completely backwards. If you're like me, I'm sure you've heard the philosophy of setting big goals and working really hard to scale your business. It looks something like this. First, you start out really excited about the idea of scaling your business and having more free time for yourself and your family, which only lasts a couple of days. Then you realize that there's a ton of steps you need to take which are confusing and tiring because you don't know where to start or what to do next. You start feeling the pressures of trying to manage your team, keeping your marketing and selling going, and making sure your clients are happy. But here's where most entrepreneurs get into serious trouble as they move through this emotional cycle of change. This is where things can get much worse. They'll try to take shortcuts and try to manipulate circumstances to get what they want. They'll start with taking on clients that aren't a good fit, hoping to make more money so that they can hire more people and have more free time to work on their business. They will work more hours and sleep less. Does this sound like you? At this point, we start to feel the pain of change and minimize the potential benefits we can get. We realize how much willpower we need to keep motivated and growing. We notice that we need to upgrade our beliefs so that we have a winner's mindset. And we recognize that we don't have the right methodology to build the systems that our business needs. And we become so uncomfortable that we are willing to go back to the way we used to be. After all, we rationalize that it wasn't so bad before. This is when we start to feel the weight of our fears and perceived roadblocks trying to pull us back down to where we started. We start to realize the strength of our habits and may let them pull us back down to where we started or worse. Now, this model doesn't have to be your reality, but as you're well aware, the strength of our habits and the power of our emotions are two very different things. Plenty of entrepreneurs quit in the valley of despair and go right back to stage one, which is way more appealing than being stuck in the valley, stuck in desperation. So as you can see, we have to go through the valley, which is the emotional cycle of change, and we also have to climb a mountain. So we're going through huge amount of downward thrust as we try to get through the valley of change, and we're also trying to get momentum and velocity as we're trying to climb the mountain because habit gravity is pulling down on us all the time. So these are two things that are going against us, and it's very, very challenging to deal with that, especially by ourselves. And nobody makes change arbitrarily anyway. We don't go about making life changes unless there is a reason, unless there's a catalyst. So what has to happen is we need some real motivation or something that gets in our way. Here's what usually happens. Before we need to make a change, we absolutely need to make one, meaning we're under pressure and we need to make a decision. We go through a stage that involves having an option. So we are seeking a solution. So we're seeking and finding. So we're seeking a solution, we're trying to find it. The other way around, though, is when we have the problem and we absolutely need a solution. It's like a situation when the government has locked your bank account and taken out the taxes that they owed. That is a problem that absolutely needs a solution, especially if you're running a business. And this is a true story about a client of mine. So we don't make changes unless there's usually something motivating us. That's what happens to most people. It doesn't matter whether it's illnesses or it has to do with money or solving a problem that's been festering between a spouse or between family members. These are the kinds of things that are avoided until it hits a point where everybody needs to come together and solve it. Here's the problem. When emotions are high, intelligence is low. So when emotions are high, intelligence is low. And we know that. We know that when there's an argument, if you've had an argument with somebody, maybe your spouse or your children or your parents, and you're in a state of heightened emotions, you are not thinking. Words will come out that you might not say generally, or you wouldn't generally say, because if you did, you might think twice about it, and then you would maybe feel bad, or you might feel ashamed, or some guilt around saying those words. But when emotions are high, you say just about anything. A perfect story is when I came out of a fitness facility and I saw a car accident, and right away all I could think of was perhaps I should help. I was certified in CPR, so I figured I might as well go and see what was going on and if they needed my help. So as I arrived at the scene, I noticed there was an older woman sitting in a car, an elderly woman, and there was a gentleman in his pickup truck. And the gentleman was extremely upset. You could see it. He was not going to go over and talk to the woman in the car. He was, going home from work likely, and very, very upset. So his emotions are high, intelligence was low. He wasn't going to be compassionate. So I climbed into the passenger seat with this woman. I could tell her arm was broken and needed mending and needed to go to the hospital. And so she was in shock, and all I did was speak to her in a calm tone voice and calmed her down and helped her out until the emergency services arrived. But as you can see, in that scenario, emotions were really high, intelligence was low, and nothing was going to cause that driver of that truck to come over and help that woman until he calmed down. So as you can see, change is always going to be part of our lives. And right now we're in the midst of massive change, especially with what's going on with the pandemic and vaccines and all these kinds of things. It's change being forced upon us, and we are not capable of handling massive change like this. And it causes a lot of emotional upset and difficulties. And our habits are the problem, because we have patterns of habit, and routines that we follow through all the time. And here we are having to change all of that. We cannot socialize, or we can socialize under certain conditions and rules. And so we're not capable of justifying that. I had a conversation with a client of mine, and she said, if this doesn't change, she's going to go insane, because socializing was a major aspect of her life. And now she couldn't do it anymore. So as you can see, change can impact us significantly, but if you can understand the emotional cycle of change and habit gravity, how that pulls on us, and recognize when you're in the valley of despair, and that being in the valley is a good thing. You know that you're in the midst of change, and you have to muster up the energy. You have to find that energy and power to keep climbing that mountain and go against your old habits. Change your habits. And if you're not sure how to change your habits, you could do simple things. And this habit might not even relate to anything you're doing. Well, it probably won't relate to anything that you need to do. But if you just started by changing a simple habit, just by taking let's say you're putting on a sweater or a shirt, you put your left arm in first. If you generally put your right arm in, just start switching your mind a little bit gently that way. Just condition yourself to do that first, or left sock first and then right sock, or right sock and then left sock. That's a simple adjustment and change, and you're changing your habits and ways of doing things, because if you've done that for years, you habitually put on the right one first, the right sock, then you're going to start shifting your mind, and then it will help you to manage other changes in your life instead of having to go headstrong against them. Years ago, my father quit smoking, and he had to quit smoking like that. And it was about 40 years of smoking cigarettes and pipe and all sorts of tobacco. And he had to commit to changing, because the doctor removed his gallbladder and warned him, if you keep this up, your body's going to keep going down, your organs are going to break down, and things are going to get worse. The habit of smoking is to relieve stress. It's temporary relief, but long-term, it's not a good habit. We know that, right? So Change is constant and inevitable, but everything else is a choice. So we just have to recognize things are going to change. The weather changes. The conditions of the stock market change all the time. There's always change going on, constant change in the universe and in our world and in our lives. And if we can just get a grip on what's going on and understand that there's going to be an emotional cycle of change, that valley, and there's also going to be climbing the mountain. We're going up that mountain, trying to get to the top, and habit gravity is pulling us down and saying, come back down to base camp. It's nice and comfortable here. That's what you're up against. And it isn't easy. And you shouldn't do it alone. You should always have an accountability partner. That's why people hire personal trainers or business coaches like me, and they get people to help them through the changes that they need to make. Because doing it alone, or even doing it with a spouse or somebody that you know well, it's not the same. It doesn't have the same potential. You need somebody who understands what you need, who has gone to a level where you want to go and knows how to get you there and take you there step by step by step without getting too much fear involved. Because if you get fear involved, then you're going to go back to your old habits and you'll go back to where it's comfortable. We see it all the time, and we know that this is a circumstance that most people cannot do on their own with their own willpower. Willpower is limited anyway, and it runs out. So you can't just use willpower to plow through and get things done. Most people can't do it. And so that's something that you have to consider. Hope you got some real value out of this video and some takeaways, and now you have some solutions to get through your challenges and your changes in your life. And if you have challenges and changes you're going through right now, just comment and let us know what you're doing, and perhaps we can give you some solutions and ideas to overcoming them. Hope you enjoyed this video, and we'll speak soon.